Welcome to Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. My name is Brandon Bornancin, a serial salesperson and entrepreneur, and I'm sitting down with the world's best sales experts to share their top secrets to sales success. Hello and welcome to this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. And I am thrilled, honored, humbled, and grateful to have with me today, Craig Elias. Craig is Canada's #1 top 50 B2B sales expert on LinkedIn and number 15 in the world. He's the $1 million prize winner of a global $1 billion pitch competition. LinkedIn user number 3,956 of almost 700 million users, and he's the creator of Trigger Event Selling. Craig is known for speaking, training, and advising on one thing that he believes has the biggest impact on sales, which is timing, which being first in with decision makers who are thinking of changing with vendors is absolutely mission critical. Craig is the author of one of my favorite books, Trigger Event Selling, which has resulted in him being a top sales performer at every company that has hired him. Having his last company named twice as one of Dow Jones' 50 most promising companies in North America, he's gotten coverage on NBC News, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and numerous others. Lastly, Craig has been named 15th on the Forbes list of the most social salespeople on the planet. Craig, we're thrilled to have you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Brandon, you got to come everywhere I go, man, because that's an awesome introduction.
Dude, I would love to. I told you, I'll be your hype man. I'll be your Vanilla Ice on stage if that guy even still exists. No, we're super excited to dive into your extensive background, your experience, your sales secrets. And the audience is dying to know two things. Number one, Craig, sales secrets from the top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. What is your #1 top sales secret if you had to go back in time to when you first started selling? If you had to hire someone, write one secret on a piece of paper to maximize their sales success, what would that be? But before you share it, the audience is also dying to know, Craig Elias, man, what is your background? Where'd you come from? Where have you sold, everywhere that you've worked in your career? And what are the successes and failures that you've experienced that create micro secrets that help you level up to do the next sales job? And then what are the micro secrets of that help you level up to do the next thing, smarter, bigger, better? So I want to uncover all those top sales secrets, and then we'll get to the #1 sales secret that you have towards the end of the interview. So with that, further ado, Craig, man, tell us a little bit about you and your background and where you came from.
Yeah, so I was one of those guys, so I'm sure there's plenty out there that put themselves through university. So my parents got divorced, put myself through university, and I was actually on track to go do a computer science degree.
Awesome.
And I got to a certain point. So I'm in my first year, second year, I forget, at University of Western Ontario in London, Ontario. And I took this course called Business 257. And I sort of chewed it up and spat it out. And as I'm going through this course, I'm having this sort of life choice around, do I want to spend all night in front of computers or all day in front of people? And I completely shifted my career focus halfway through a degree. So I ended up with what is actually called the cross-disciplinary degree. So I don't actually have a major. It's almost more like a double minor or maybe a double medium, if that's such a thing. And I put myself through school by working at a bar, a very popular bar. And
nice. That's not a bad place to work.
Oh, and the money was like this. So this is the 80s, and I'd be making on average $1,500 in cash a week.
Damn, dude. Right? That's money.
And now you have to give it all up and go get I would say a real job, but lack of a better term, real job, right? So I'm working at this bar, and I have a coworker who goes to work for a recruiting firm. And he phones me up one day and says, Craig, I've got this company. They're called AMP. I think they're now owned by Tyco, but AMP stood for Aircraft Marine Products. So whenever you connect two things together, there's stuff at the end, those interconnects, that's what they sell.
Okay, cool.
So the guy I was working with, his name is Jim. So he tells me about this job, an inside sales job. And I go for the interview, and the lady who interviewed me, her name was Donna. She runs the inside sales department. And I'm having this interview, and she asked me the question, why do you want this job? And I told her that I want this job as an inside salesperson because I want to be an outside salesperson. And she says, my recollection is, she says, that won't happen here. I'm like, why? She says, because we take engineers. We train them for 2 years and we put them on the road. So there's no way you're going to be an outside salesperson. So that's okay, but that's my job. And there was a fair bit of tension in this interview. And I'm like, wow, I'm never going to get that job. I got the job. So now my responsibility
That's
is,
awesome.
from an inside sales perspective, every account worth less than $10,000, my job is to be their salesperson. And one of the first things I did was I spent money I didn't have and I bought a suit.
It's awesome.
And I actually bought suspenders. And that was sort of the beginning of my suspender thing. So you'll see half the pictures of me have me in the orange shirt. The other half have the suspenders.
Yep.
The suspender thing's been a thing since 1989. So I get this job, and every day I go in and I have to be in before 10 and I'm there until 7 p.m. because I'm looking after Western Canada and I'm living in Toronto. And I'm in that job maybe 60 days when Donna's husband, who runs national sales for the entire organization, comes to me and says, Craig, I had an outside sales guy in Edmonton. He's actually sold the script to Hollywood. He's leaving. And I have no engineers that are anywhere near ready to be in sales. You seem to know what you're doing. Would you like a job in outside sales? So the way I remember this all happening was I got the job Christmas. So the Friday before Christmas, before I leave, tells me I get the job. He says, the only thing you have to do is you have to stay where you are for at least 60 days so my wife can find someone to replace you. Because if you don't hang around, she's never going to sleep with me. So I hung around. Went to Edmonton, which is about 3 hours north of where I live now. I lasted about 20 months in that job, and then got promoted.
What were you selling there? What was there?
So same thing. So whenever you take two things and you connect them, like when you plug your iPhone to your laptop, and the way that we sold was you had to sell to engineers. Because engineers are buying or building new products, designing new products. You have to be in the design, so that when they start manufacturing something, the purchasing department says, oh, I need this widget 1, 2, 3. This is the approved part. Let's go buy it.
Interesting. So like, were you selling to OEMs or like?
Selling to OEMs.
Got it.
So anybody who's making their own original equipment, my job was to spend time with the engineering group, getting our product specified in their designs. And,
Sweet.
And the challenge back then was we were the most expensive provider in the industry.
That's tough.
So it seemed like I always had a $10 solution to a $2 problem. And this is when I had my sort of first micro learning opportunity that kind of got me to the next level.
Okay.
The organization hired an external sales trainer. We had an internal sales trainer. Her name was Cheryl. And she was on medical leave.
Was she any good?
She was good, right?
Okay.
But they brought in this external sales trainer to come work with us. And he asked a very interesting question. He said, well, how many of you have degrees? And we all had degrees because you had to have a degree in order to get that job. And then he said, you learned a lot in school. Why did you learn so much in school? And after about 10 minutes, the answer became because we read a lot. And then his question was, well, when's the last time you read a book about your career? And I was like, wow, never. So the first thing I did was by very good luck, I picked up a book called Spin Selling. Yeah. And in chapter 4 of Spin Selling, pages 66 to 95, is this whole thing about customers have a situation, then they have a problem, then there's the implications of that problem. Now they have a need. And what I learned from that book is my customers did not have a $2 problem. They had a $100,000 problem, and I had a $10 solution.
Nice.
That for me, like I think every salesperson on the planet before they take any sales job should go read those 30 pages in that book.
66 to 95 in Spin Selling.
66 to 95 in Spin Selling.
I can't believe you remember those pages. Like,
well, it was so impactful, and I talk about it all the time. Like if people on this that listen to this only do one thing, go read those 30 pages.
That's incredible. Situation, problem, implications of problem.
Implication, need. And on multiple occasions, I would walk into an organization and help them understand that they have a problem doing things one way, show them the impact or implications of that. And then I would show up with something totally different. And on more than one occasion, I displaced every competitor in the entire shop. In some cases, that was like 6 and 7 figure deals, just because I understood that I in spin.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The I, because you understood the I in what? The impact. The impact part of spin.
Impact and implications. And now I'm like, hang on a second. You've got this massive, you spend all this money on labor. Like you could buy more expensive parts, save a boatload on labor, and be a million miles ahead.
Wow.
I remember one occasion when I went in to one account after I'd done some of this work. I went in with the financial analysis. I had my boss, Larry, and his boss, Mel, the guy who originally gave me this job. We walked in and saw the chief operating officer, and they talked about, what's going to happen. And the chief operating officer said, I don't care what you do. I almost don't care what you charge me, but that equipment that you put in the facility, it's not leaving. And that's when I sort of got good. So what also helped me, a book, was a guy named Mac Hannon.
Okay.
Wrote a book called, I believe it's called Consultative Selling. And I don't know which chapter was in this book, but it's all about how do you dollarize your solution?
Yep.
So that somebody can justify the decision to somebody else.
Dollarize the solution.
Dollarize the solution.
It's funny. We just had another guy on the show that was his secret. His secret was dollarizing. Rob Jepson.
Rob's great. I love his stuff.
Yeah. We just had him on yesterday. Too funny, man.
I can't wait to see his thing because I want to see what he does. I recommend his stuff to everybody.
Yeah. I mean, what's great is like we're interviewing hundreds of sales experts. So this is a lot of fun. You learn so much. So did that sales expert. So like you never read a bunch of stuff before in that role. And then this guy just like blew your brain. Like, oh my gosh, I got to study now sales.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So then when you went and you read spin selling, consultative selling, yep. What happened next?
So one of the other things, what happened was I got moved I left Edmonton, got moved into a territory in a place called Markham, Ontario, north of Toronto. And I noticed something really interesting when I took over somebody else's territory. I noticed that some of the accounts that they couldn't get into, I could. And some of the accounts that they could get into, I had a hard time getting into them. And one of the things I realized also is that in order to be effective as a salesperson, I needed to try and find a way to sell the stuff that nobody else had. So I had a trunk full of samples. So if an opportunity ever came up, I would have an actual physical thing I could hand to somebody. They could then see it. They would design it in. And on multiple occasions, I was the first guy in North America to sell a product or service that we had because I was always trying to find an advantage to get on the very front end of people's design process.
Awesome. That's smart. So smart. That was like another secret, right? Was like you got to get in before they start designing it because if you're not in that convo, you won't be a part of the solution.
Yeah, because you're not helping define what the problem is. And when you
define the requirements. Yeah,
you get to help design the solution. So had a ton of success,
secret,
but also had some failures. And what I began to realize is that every time there's a change in salespeople, you lose customers. Now, I've since then seen some data. The data I've seen is from a group called Chatham Partners.
Yep.
And I've tried to find the actual source of the statistic because I saw it once but haven't seen it since. But it says that 28% of all vendor switches are triggered by a change in account managers.
Really?
Yeah.
What percentage was that?
28%.
Okay, almost
all
one
vendor
third.
switches are triggered by a change in account managers.
Interesting.
So I'm like, okay, so now I'm having this failure, and I have to think of what am I going to do differently. So I'm in that job for about 2 years, and then I got promoted.
Was that because of so like you lost a big deal because someone turned over?
I lost a customer.
Got it.
Right. I managed to get some big deals that was the time I had my first 7-figure deals, a couple of them, but awesome. I lost a customer in the process. And it's like, really? So while I'm putting new stuff in the funnel, stuff's falling out of the funnel, and I needed to find a way to stop the stuff from coming out of the funnel. So I was in that job for about 2 years and then got promoted and shipped out to Vancouver.
Okay, sweet.
Now I have a $5 million customer.
Okay. Like one enterprise customer, that's
One
it.
enterprise customer, $5 million.
Same company, right?
One company, right? So I have one company that's $5 million, which I have to hang on to. So I learned from my mistakes from where I lost that customer, and I actually came up with 3 questions I have to ask whenever I take over account or territory. So that was one thing. The other thing I noticed is that there was an account on a place called Vancouver Island, which would take me, by the time I drove to the ferry, waited at the terminal, took the ferry across and drove to their place, would take me about 3.5 hours to get there. But what I noticed is they were doing $10 million with my competitors and $60,000 with me. So now I'm like, okay, I need to keep that big customer, but if I'm going to smoke my quota, I got to find a way to crack into that account on the island. So
wow.
The 3 questions that I've learned to ask when you take over an account or a territory.
That was going to be my next question.
So here are the 3 questions. So when you take over an account, you go as far up the organization as you possibly can, and you want to ask 3 questions. So I'm going to pretend I replaced you, okay? So I'm going to go see somebody. I'm going to say, so my name's Craig. I've taken over your account. I want to ask 3 questions. The first question I want to ask is, what did Brandon do really well that I need to keep doing? Second question is, what does my competition do really well that I should start doing?
Ooh, I like that one.
Wait for this one. The last question is, what does nobody do that you wish everybody did?
Damn. I mean, this could be applied to taking over an account. This could be applied to current customers too.
Totally, right? But here's what's interesting. So the first time I did this was in the late 90s.
What made you come up with these questions? Like, how did you come up with that?
Well, so I'm a guy who just says, try something, see what happens. So I had one question, and that sort of, on one of these conversations, that question just came out of my mouth. I'm like, oh, let's write that one down. That's a good question. And then as I did more, that third question came out. Oh, that's a good question. Let's write that down. So then I just repeat. But I think that the best thing to do is don't spend all time trying to come up with stuff. Just start something, do something, learn something.
I love that. And those 3 questions again, what did Brandon do well that I need to keep doing? What does my competition do well that I should be doing? And then what does nobody do that you wish they did?
Yeah, that everybody did. And what for me happened is this is the sort of latter part of the 90s. Email is making its way into corporate communications.
Yeah.
And the one response I got from almost everybody was, if I send you an email, just let me know you got it and when to expect a response.
Okay. So like timely communication.
Just say, okay, Brandon, I got this email. I'm hunkered down. I have no time till Monday. Can you wait until Monday? Yes, I can wait until Monday. Otherwise, what happens is they don't know when you're going to respond. And the next salesperson walks in and asks if they have any problems, and they share the problem with that other salesperson they just shared with you. Where if I tell them when to expect an answer, and someone shows up and say, can I help you with everything? They go, no, because they know they're going to get an answer on Monday.
I love that. You know, I'm actually going to tell my customer success team, they need to send that to everyone right when a ticket comes in, and same with like my sales team. You know, hey, thanks for the email. Looking into this. I'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Oh, but even better, but he can't say as soon as possible, because as soon as possible doesn't say when. It's like, hey.
What if you don't know when?
So my best guess is I should have an answer by Friday.
Okay.
But here's the part where you have to under promise and over deliver. Because if the stars align and you can deliver an answer on Friday, never tell the customer you can deliver an answer on Friday. Say, you know what, if I do my best, I'm pretty sure I can get an answer on Monday. And then if you show up and have an answer on Friday, what do they think?
It's smart. They think you're on top of it.
Like learning, this is one of the hardest things for salespeople to do, learning how to under promise and over deliver.
I love it. I love it. Why do you think that question came up from everyone?
But email?
Yeah, like the one question about, hey, if I shoot you an email, just let me know you got it, and tell me when you're going to get back to me.
Yeah, email was new back then, and nobody knew if you actually even really got the email.
That's
because today the same problem exists, but it exists for a totally different reason. Today,
too much shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, it might get missed, but second of all, it might end up in a spam filter. and it gets totally missed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, damn, that's crazy.
So let's talk about the other account, the one on Vancouver Island.
Yeah,
Right?
the big one that you want to win, the $10 million one.
I want to go get $10 million. So there's $10 million, 3 competitors.
Oh yeah, hold on, curious, and I want to hear that. But what did they say to you when you asked those 3 questions? Like, what was the biggest thing that was different, you think, when you got the new account?
Well, you know what? It's funny because all I remember, how long? 20 years later was the number 3 thing. Right.
And that was let me know.
An answer.
Yeah, let me know you got my email.
What the other ones were, I totally forget because it didn't matter. It did it may have been something that I was already going to do anyway, but it was the third one that was like, wow, I never thought of that.
Light bulb. Got it. Totally. Okay. Now let's go to the $10 million opportunity. It's on this island, 3.5 hours away. Shit, that's far.
It's far. So I live in North Vancouver. It takes 45 minutes to drive to the ferry terminal. You got to be there at least 30 minutes early to get a spot on the ferry, an hour and a half to get there to the other side, and it's a 25-minute drive to the customer. So I went there asking my 3 questions because I'd learned to ask those 3 questions. And at the same time, I forget how this came up in a conversation, but in one conversation, it came up that these guys go mountain biking every Wednesday night.
Okay.
And I had gone to this island on a Wednesday. And the first time I went, I said to everybody that I met, I'll be here every other Wednesday, every other week. And they're like, yeah, that is never going to happen. It takes you half a day to get here and half a day to get back. You leave the house at 6 a.m. You don't get home till 10 p.m. You're not going to be here in 2 weeks. And I was there like every other Wednesday. And then I learned they go mountain biking on Wednesday nights. And I'm like, I mountain bike like 3 days a week. So why don't I bring my bike over? So
that's awesome.
And I started fostering these relationships with these guys, engineers, that were mountain bikers. So they used to go to an old dump. I used to mountain bike there. And in one of those nights, they mentioned that they'd always wanted to plan a trip to go mountain biking in Whistler or Blackcomb.
Oh, that's sick.
And I'm like, I go there every other weekend. So you pick a weekend, we'll go. 21 of them showed up. We went mountain biking that weekend. And then I noticed how something changed. What I notice now is because I had this thing in common with them, they'd rather share new opportunities with me than somebody else. And they went from 60 grand to $3 million in less than a year.
Whoa. And that was because of, you said, what was that last sentence you said?
Purely based upon the relationship, the fact we had this thing in common, this mountain bike thing. So what I've learned since then, there are 2 ways to describe this. One way to describe it is an academic term. It's called the Johari Window, Johari, Johari Window. Okay. And the more you have in common with somebody, the more likely they are to choose you over somebody else.
Damn, the Johari Window. Where did you hear that?
So I taught entrepreneurship at a university for 3 years. When I came back, that's where I learned the Johari Window.
Got it.
And what I've also learned is there's a term, and the term is called propinquity. You want to try spelling that?
I'm taking notes on my phone. I have no idea.
So here's how it is. So it's propinquity, propinquity. Propinquity is the impact of nearness, geographical nearness and psychological nearness. So when you have the same interests, values, and aspirations, people are more inclined to choose you over somebody else simply based upon that.
Okay.
So they turned into a huge account. And then I decided, so I then got actually promoted to run Western Canada. I got lucky for a while. And then did that for a few years. And then decided I wanted to do my executive MBA. So I moved to Calgary, Alberta to do my executive MBA. Nice. And I went to go work for a company called WorldCom. Do you remember WorldCom?
No.
$11 billion in accounting fraud. Wow. So I joined them the day before 9/11. And yet in a post, and if guys and gals are on this call long enough, they'll know how hard it was to sell on a post-9/11 environment because people just shut down. But in less than 6 months, I was the #1 sales guy in the entire country.
Holy cow. And what was this? You said, what was the company name and what they
So
do?
they're called WorldCom.
WorldCom. Sorry. Got it. Yeah. I know WorldCom.
So they're selling in Canada. They can't sell telephony, but they can sell data services to people that were doing all kinds of stuff on the web, right? So I become the number one sales guy 21 days after I become the number one sales guy in the company, in the country, not the company, sorry. They admitted to conducting accounting fraud. And now nobody will buy from me.
By the way, how long did it take you to become the number one rep at WorldCom, and how'd you do it?
So less than 6 months. And like most of my time in sales, I got lucky. And I didn't understand how I got lucky, but now I've learned how to make luck happen. And we'll talk about that from my number one tip thing, right?
Awesome.
So what happened on multiple occasions is I had arrived on somebody's doorstep right after they'd received funding in some way, shape, or form. And now all of a sudden they had money to spend, and I was the first guy they talked to just purely by luck.
Oh, nice. And that was purely by luck. Got it.
Right?
Got it.
Now, was it luck? I'm going to say it's luck because I didn't know what I was doing back then, but now I know that it was the relationships that I was building that made me the first person they phoned when they had money. But back then it was luck. That's
incredible, man. It's a smart trigger event right after they got funding.
Totally.
They need to spend it.
It's really important to try and foster a relationship before they have money, because otherwise they've already got someone they would rather give the business to. So it's always good to build relationships with decision makers before they have money. Right? So WorldCom admits to conducting all this accounting fraud. Nobody wants to buy from me.
Yeah, that's brutal. Was it just absolute chaos at this place?
Oh, it's unbelievable, right? Nobody wants to touch you with 100-foot.
Because that's like working at Enron, right? When shit goes down.
Oh yeah. So this happened at the same time as Enron.
Wow.
So imagine being the number one sales guy. And here's the problem I had back then. My problem was I was a good sales guy. So I was always putting chunks of money away, but my financial responsibility was limited because there was always more money coming in, right? And now all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I had to get rid of one of my cars. I got out of my house. I moved somewhere smaller because I figured the world's going to hunker down. How do I just not have my expenses way too high? But before I left the house that I was in, I did something. What I did, because nobody would buy from me, is I started reflecting on my luck as a sales guy. Like, when was I good? When was I great? When was I just unstoppable as a sales guy? And this is when I figured out three things. So the first thing I figured out was my luck as a sales guy was showing up in front of people that were thinking of changing but hadn't defined the problem or started designing the solution yet. So it was purely luck. It's what I now call a window of dissatisfaction. First guy they talked to, business I got was 80%. And I was like, wow, 80%, I'm damn good. Turns out I'm not that good. It turns out the average is actually 74% if you get there before the competition, while they're in this window. Wow. That was the first thing I figured out. The second
And you said thinking of changing, and when they haven't designed the solution, they haven't defined the problem yet.
Yeah, so I haven't defined the problem because the problem definition comes first, and then the solution designing comes second.
Got it.
So if you ever get in front of someone as a salesperson who's already defined the problem, if it doesn't align up with what you do, your first job is to have them redefine the problem so it aligns with what it is that you have. Otherwise, you're never going to get there. Wow. So
that was one. And then, go ahead. Sorry, keep going. I was saying you said you learned three things. That was number one.
The first thing. Second thing I learned was, so I figured out this window. So there's three buying modes: status quo, happy, see no reason to change; in the window, thinking of changing but haven't done anything about it yet; and searching for alternatives. Defined the problem, right? Designed the solution, and now they're trying to find a vendor. And what I realized is I had to find a way to get to the people in the middle. But this is what I couldn't figure out. And this took me a few weeks to get to the next stage, is how can people be in this buying mode of status quo on one day, be in the window of dissatisfaction on Wednesday, and start searching for alternatives on Friday? And I started reflecting and just going over stuff. So every afternoon for a month, beer, wine, whatever it was, just think, analyze, reflect. And then one day I had this total epiphany. It was like, hang on a second, there's all these events. So someone has an event and now they want to change. But just because they want to change doesn't mean they do. They had to have a second event where they could afford to change. And even if they can afford to change, they don't buy until they can justify the decision to other people. So I then learned there were these 3 events that I need to pay attention to in order for me to be more effective as a salesperson.
Dude, that's like super deep to come up with out of the cusp. Like, dude, I don't know what you dream about at night. Like, you know, like that's just, you know, as a salesperson, like you went super engineering, data, analytical on that, like figuring out that problem and that solution, right?
Totally. And here's the thing, I sell based upon emotion. But I had, in order for me, so I remember my computer science and business piece, this is where I had to take my analytical computer science side and say, okay, I need to figure this out. Like, what is it that drives people to change? What drives them to change? So that was my second thing I learned that summer. And then I learned the third thing. And this for me has been completely transformational. So for almost 20 years, I had sales managers. And sales managers all told me that if you ever lose the business, you never lose the lesson.
That's great piece of advice.
But you know what? That advice sucks. Because here's the problem. You spend all your time analyzing the deals you lose. You don't learn much when you analyze the deals you lose. What I learned that summer is you learn way more when you analyze the deals that you win. So I came up with this approach. It's now called a one sales analysis, WON. You analyze the deals you win to figure out how do you go replicate your best customers. So out of curiosity, so this is the summer of 2002 when I had this epiphany.
That's interesting.
I went to the internet, I typed between quotes the phrase lost sales analysis. So the importance of the quotes is it has to be those 3 words together in that order. Okay. In the summer 2002, I typed it in the internet, 50,000 pages on how to conduct a lost sales analysis. But for the first time in my life, that's not what I'd done. What I'd done is analyze the business I had won. So what I did was I replaced the word lost in my search, did a search for the phrase one sales analysis.
That's awesome.
How many pages do you think I found on the internet that talked about how to analyze the deals you win in order to clone your best customers?
0.
Close enough, 2.
Okay.
So, and then I'm like, okay. And then as I had this epiphany, I then began to realize, I started talking to salespeople about their own experiences, because it turns out in North America, the average business-to-business salesperson learns of $1 million worth of stuff a customer wants, but it's not what that salesperson sells. And what I learned is that 75% of the time, they do nothing with the information. So I came up with this idea of a 2-sided information exchange.
Smart.
And that 2-sided information exchange was called InnerSell, INNERSELL. In the next year, in 2000.
Damn, that's like a data. That's like almost like a data product, like Seamless.AI in a way, right?
Totally. Well, maybe we should talk about, because here's what happens. So I was still looking for a job at that point, and I realized in January, screw getting a job, I'm going to become an entrepreneur. I'm 40 years old. If I don't do it now, I never will. Got no kid. The lady I was engaged to decided when WorldCom admitted to conducting accounting fraud, if there was no security in my job, she wasn't having kids, and moved out 3 weeks later.
Sorry to hear that, man.
It's crazy. Me and my dog and a car, right?
You just lost your job. You just lost your girl.
Still got my dog.
Oh, well, sorry, not your dog. You just lost. Yeah. You lost your job. You lost your. I thought I said dog versus girl. You lost your job. You lost your girl. You still had your dog.
Right. So I decided I was going to build a 2-sided information exchange.
That's so cool.
Called InnerSell. I had it up and running by May. In September, I got involved in a contest for $1 billion business ideas.
Did you program this thing all yourself?
No, I'm a sales guy, right? So I sold somebody else on the learning experience by programming in .NET, because they had no .NET experience and wanted to learn it. They programmed it for me. So after I ended up winning this $1 billion idea contest, got $1 million prize, moved to California.
It's fucking nuts. How did you pitch that? Like, how did you pitch and win that deal?
So I still have the actual slides, and I have my script actually written out, but here's what I've learned. So I had a 5-minute window over a webcam with this very famous venture capitalist. And I was warned in advance I only got 5 minutes. And I remember playing with my pitch, and it seemed like everything I did, no matter if I took words out and put words in, but I tried to massage it in 100 different ways, and it was always 5 minutes and 8 seconds. So my theory was, on the day of the pitch, all I have to do is talk a little faster, right? I can get an extra 8 seconds out of this. It didn't work because what happened was I'm 30 seconds into my pitch and the other person starts asking me questions. And all I could think was, can you just shut up? Because I've only got 5 minutes. But here's what I learned. He was hooked in the first 30 seconds. So when the deal was done and the paperwork signed and I had some time to go see him again. And I asked him, I said, so what did you see in the 5 minutes to say you're going to give me $1 million? And he gave me 2 pieces of advice. He said, Craig, first of all, I'm going to tell you, it didn't take 5 minutes. It took 30 seconds. And 30 seconds, I made that decision. But I actually didn't decide to give you $1 million. I actually decided in that 30 seconds that I was going to give you $5 million because you had an idea that was so big, right? You had a business model that was so powerful and you had a way to defend your business idea. Like you're going to need more money to make this whole thing scale. So basically 30 seconds in, he made a $5 million decision like that, right? And I think most people make those kinds of decisions. They either get what you're selling or they don't. And I think this is where most
you pitched Tim Draper.
Yeah.
You son of a, that's awesome. Right? Yeah. So you went on his, you went on his show or no, you pitched him virtually.
This was way back. This is the first time we'd ever done this, right?
Oh my gosh. Dude, yeah, Tim Draper's awesome in the VC world.
Awesome. I've seen him a few times since. I've had him speak at events. Cool. I actually had a student go down to his Draper University, a guy named Cole. I actually helped him learn how to pitch. He went down to Draper University, 80 people from 22 different countries in this Draper University cohort. And at the end of 5 weeks, they get 2 minutes to pitch. Cole, his company got picked by the 200 angel investors and VCs as the most investable company out of all 80, right? So there is an art to pitching.
Wow. So you've got this window. You planned out this 5-minute pitch to Tim Draper, who's like just an amazing venture capitalist. If anyone looks him up, you'll see what I'm talking about. You win the $1 billion idea contest.
Yep.
And by the way, so you prep this pitch, and he just straight up stops you and asks a shitload of questions.
30 seconds into.
What were the first 30? Walk me through the first 30 seconds.
Wow, really good question. I'd have to go back and dig it up, but basically, I just talked about that I had found a way to monetize the $3 trillion worth of information that's in the heads of salespeople. They do nothing with 75% of the time. And then for the last 9 months, I put my career and I put my life on hold to develop this business. That's how I started.
Got it. And then did you start going into explaining the metrics around all the information that salespeople are privy to at an organization? And I think you called it $1 million worth of information.
Basically this. So the numbers that I used back then was in the categories I was using, there's about 3 million business to business salespeople. Each of them learns of $1 million worth of stuff their customers want, but it's not what they sell.
Yeah.
I may not be a mathematician, but I know how to add a few zeros to some zeros. And I know you add 6 more zeros to $3 million, that's $3 trillion worth of information. You could screw a lot of things up and still be right.
That's awesome. And this is this was before all this tech where you could figure out what web technologies people are using.
Way before that.
So much. What types of information do you think salespeople are learning? That would be shared in InnerSell the way that you envisioned it?
It's basically, hey, Brandon, got this customer, Steve, who's looking for some contacts. He's come to me, but I sell CRM. Would you have any interest in his contact information so you can follow up and pursue the deal? So these are actual real leads. And here's the best part. People didn't pay for the leads unless they turned into a sale.
Interesting. So it was so you shared this intelligence about these opportunities that from salespeople, opportunities that are identified, they share it. And if it turns into a deal, then the end user pays for it.
Then what ends up happening is the salesperson put it into the system. We shared those leads with businesses, not individual salespeople. So it wasn't a peer-to-peer, right? At that point, the business then already had a predefined contact person that said, yes, I'll take this deal and I agree to pay this finder's fee if it results in a sale.
Interesting. So it was like a cost per performance basis.
Totally.
Dude, I love it. I love the open marketplace too. Kind of like the Uber of sales and inside sales intelligence. Now, did the VCs or anyone be like, well, you've got all this, it's basically like, it feels like insider trading of info. Like
Totally.
that would have been one of the things that I would have said as a VC or investor. Like, how'd you handle that situation?
Good question. So for the most part, we're not trading stocks. We're simply trading information. Like Jigsaw did this with contacts, right?
Yeah.
I've used Jigsaw ever since they came out. The fortunate thing is they're shutting down in May, right? So Salesforce bought them. Being shut down in May.
And I know you're on Seamless, which is exciting, and you've had a lot of success with it. Like, so that's contact info though, right? Like we use AI to find contact info. It's like not like about like, I don't know.
The deal.
It's not like insider deal shit that you could, I mean, that'd be cool. I'll put that on the roadmap. I mean, depending on how that worked out for you.
Once you build a community big enough, it's easy to do. I'll help you with that out. It's not the game I'm in anymore, but yeah, I'll do it. If you want to go that route, and even as a side project or a pet project, I'll help you.
Yeah. So not to get off track, but so Tim Draper says this is huge, right? He says, I'm going to give you $5 million. Did he say that before he looked into your background or anything? Or was it just like, I want to end for
question. So this is after the deal had been signed. He says, I at that point, I decided, if you needed more money, I would give you up to $5 million.
That's awesome.
Right. So then what happens is I become a dad.
Okay.
My wife lives in Calgary.
By the way, I got to take my shot. Dude, tell Tim we're prepping for a Series A. Would love to work with him. Okay.
You know what's funny? I have made more than one introduction to Tim Draper, so it's entirely possible, right? It's great. Stranger things have happened. So become a dad, put in place a CEO, spent 6 months, came back home.
Oh, hold on. So you said became a dad, you replaced yourself as CEO?
Yep.
Well, dude, this was your baby. 4 years at Intercell. Like, you just wanted out. You retired. Like, what do you mean?
No, but so there are things in life that are more important than money.
Okay.
Right? So I basically went to Tim Draper and said, look, I love your money, but I love this lady more, right? I am not going to be a successful entrepreneur with a ruined marriage and dysfunctional kids. I'll put in place a CEO. I'll spend 6 months. Then I have to go home. Right?
Wow.
These are life decisions that you get to make. Here's what I've learned in life. You make the big decisions with your heart. You make the little decisions with your head.
Well, you don't think you could have ran the company and been a great father, like doing both?
Not for a bunch of, no, because the thing is, the first few years when your kids are around are the most important time. And it was like, this was one of those life decisions that I will never regret.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to like, just being a young CEO, it'd be so hard for me to be like, I'm going to leave Seamless because my fiance is about to have a kid. Like, I would try to make it work, right? Like, I would try to figure it out. And even though I work 7 days a week, 24/7, like it demands a shitload of time and effort.
Totally. And when you live in different countries, in different time zones, right? There's all kinds of stuff. And this was the promise that I made to this lady. And I'm one of those guys that has this thing called integrity. So whatever you say you're going to do, you do.
Got it. So you guys were far apart too.
Yeah. Now it's only 2.5 hours by plane, but still, right? It's a bit of a challenge trying to, make that relationship work. So you have you simply make a commitment. But then something really, so when what
did Tim say? Well, first off, like, this is your dream. This is your company. Like, was it hard for you to come to that realization?
Totally. Because I went from this guy that broke all the rules, right? That had I was like this golden child on a million different fronts. And all of a sudden I went to being a stay-at-home dad and making no money.
What did Tim say to you? Like, 4 years, like, by the way, was the company doing well or bad? I'm curious.
So at that point we were doing reasonably well, right? We weren't hitting out of the park yet because our competition, people believed, was LinkedIn. So we'd always position ourselves differently than LinkedIn.
That's tough to compete with LinkedIn.
Yeah. One of the things that I was doing is going around the country, visiting all these different places, putting on these sessions related to sales, related to why do you want to get to someone before they decided what the solution is. And that was creating all the demand. When that stopped and the other CEO took over, wasn't doing the same thing, that's when things began to go a little bit south. And in the end, it didn't make it. But what happened for me was really interesting, was that I was home for 3 days and I got asked to go speak at a CEO conference. And there was like 50 CEOs in the room. I talked for 25 minutes. And half of these CEOs came to me afterwards and says, wow, that is so cool. I have never heard of anything or seen anything like this. How soon can you come to my team and give them a 2-day version? And I, in my head, said to myself, I only have 25 minutes. But what I said to them was, look, I just came back to be a stay-at-home dad. Give me 6 months, you can have the half-day version. And that then became this whole second career of transitioning down this road of everything related to these trigger events that I'd figured out years before. And then I started becoming a subject matter expert specific to these events that you use in order to be able to drive more people to become customers.
So that basically opened up your like keynoting and speaking.
That opened up all these doors. But here's what's really interesting, because so Jill Konrath had sort of touched on this at 1 or 2 different occasions, talked about triggering events. And I phoned her up like a son-in-law who's going to ask the dad, can I marry your daughter? It's like, hey, can I go pursue this? Because if you're going to go pursue this, I'll leave it alone. She said, I'm not going to pursue this. It's yours. And that's when I started going crazy down this path.
That's awesome. Yeah, we interviewed Jill. She's amazing. She was actually your book and her book were the first 2 like early sales books that I read, like first top 10. I remember picking up both of them. I mean, selling to big companies, trigger event selling, like, and that's when it hit me, like, cause I was going into enterprise sales and I was like, damn, dude, I get it. I get it now. So, that's incredible. So she gives you her blessing.
Yeah, go.
And then what was next?
So next for me was trying to figure out, how do I write a book? Because I didn't want to travel, and I kept getting all these calls to go travel and go teach this stuff. So I decided to write a book. So the book you read. So I wrote a book, and the way I wrote the book was I actually did 7 different webinars, and I had the webinars then transcribed and turned into a book. I had it edited, like all that stuff, had it done. Book comes out.
So hold on. So you did all these like recorded webinars, and then
7 of them.
7 webinars to like a virtual, a real audience, or just like you?
That was a real audience. 7 webinars, 7 chapters. Each webinar was the chapter in the book.
6.
Right? Got it transcribed, had it printed, self-published, had a designer do all the work.
So did you have to edit that webinar a lot? Like a webinar transcription, 60 minutes, how many pages is that?
Good question. So what ended up happening is the whole book's 250 pages. That's 7 webinars, right? So you have to get it down, distill it, structure it, do all the rest of that stuff.
Awesome.
So I wrote the book because I didn't want to travel.
Yeah, you could scale your expertise much faster doing the book.
So the only flaw in my plan was the fact that the book won some awards, and now, of course, even more people want me to travel. Right? So
it's funny.
That's just kind of the way that it goes.
So you launched the book, and I guess what was next then? Obviously, you're this prolific expert now, with shift selling. Like tell the audience, I guess, where you're at today, and we'll go right into the sales secret.
Yeah. So one of the things that I actually did to help grow my audience is I would do webinars. I would do joint webinars. I'd find somebody else that had a similar topic. I would find somebody who sells a product or service related to that topic. They would provide the infrastructure. We'd all 3 promote the event, and at the end of the event, we all got a list. And I went through this series of webinars that I put on, and I put on a number of joint events. I remember the first time I sort of cracked the 1,000 person on a webinar piece was with another early user of LinkedIn, and we put on this 1-hour session about how to use LinkedIn to get more customers. With 3,300 people sign up for that event.
Wow, dude, that's huge.
I then did one and actually included LinkedIn on that one, and 5,500 people signed up for that event. So I then ended up building a bit of a partnership with a company back then that was called OneSource.
Yeah.
They would have me go speak at conferences all over the place.
They were bought by D&B, right?
Yeah.
Or sales, D&B, yeah.
Yeah. So they would hire me to go speak at conferences. They'd give away free copies of my book. And that was a way that I got into a lot of different things. These days, I'm more of what you might call a cherry picker. So I have a list of accounts that I want to get into, and I focus mostly just on that list of accounts. I only prospect 2 hours a week. I prospect first thing on Monday morning, because what I have is either on somebody's list of things to get done that week, or it's not.
Interesting.
Okay? It's not on their list. So 8:00, 8:30.
Is this by the way, is this your secret? Are we going into the secret?
We're not the number one yet.
Okay, cool.
I want to share a couple and then I'll get to number one. So I only spend an hour on the phone on Monday. Okay. I just talked to VPs of sales or higher. They're new in their job. I have a simple value proposition that contains no nouns that explains what I do. Right? So if I was to pick up the phone and call you and you're brand new as a VP of sales, now I'm not going to give away my number one message, but I'll give away my number two.
Okay.
All right. So my number two one is, hi, Brandon, my name's Craig, and I have a really simple way to have more of your B players become A players.
Shit. I like it.
And everybody asks what? How?
Right. What or how?
How?
What? How do you, I was going to say the how.
So then I get to ask questions. I say, well, can I ask a few questions first? I'm like, well, how many of your salespeople do you have? How many are B players? Why do you think your B players aren't A players? I'm like, no, I think you have it totally wrong. Here's the reason your B players aren't A players. If you want to continue the conversation, let's set up a call for 20 minutes. When do you want to have 30 minutes? When do you want to have that call? We're going to pick a time. And then I always ask, who's the second person who's going to be on that call?
Who's the second person? That's genius.
You know why?
Why?
Because the data says second person on your first call makes you 3 times more likely to get them as a customer.
Okay, say that one more time. Second person on
your first call makes them 3 times more likely to get them as a customer.
Wow.
That's simple thing of a second person on your first call.
What the hell? Second person on a first call, 3 times more likely to become a customer. Who's the second person that's going to be on that call? Like it.
Yeah. So that comes from a guy named Donato Dario, and he has a fair bit of data behind that.
Unbelievable. I love that question.
Who's the second person who's going to be on the call? I didn't say, can we get a second person? Then they're going to say, no. Who's the second person who's going to be on the call? To the best of my ability, I always want the person with the problem and the person with the budget.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Makes sense. So
that's Mondays.
Yep.
The only other hour I spend is Friday afternoons from a little after 1 till 2 o'clock. I phone the same people back.
Okay.
Because it's either been on the list all week and they want to get it off their list.
Yep.
It got on their list and they want to get rid of it before the weekend comes along.
Okay. And you said you go after VPs of sales who
new in their job.
New in the job, like new role within the past week, month, 3 months?
Good question. So this kind of comes to my number one thing.
Okay. Well, then should I answer? Should I introduce the secret real quick?
Sure.
Sales secrets from the top 1%. Craig Elias, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. My man, what is your number one top sales secret?
Only sell to people that are motivated to change. Now, here's what I disagree with a lot of what the Challenger sales says, but the Challenger does one thing really well. You sell to a group called mobilizers. Mobilizers are people that are new in their job. VPs or higher, have money, authority, or influence. You pick up the phone, you explain the value of being your customer, you do it in less than 7 seconds, you get them to ask the question, how? You arrange a call. If you only sell to those that are motivated, you're way more likely to be successful. And people that are new in their job, here's what the data says. I'm going to use some data from Discover.org. The data says
I hate that name, but keep going.
That's okay.
I
want to at least reference the source of the data so people don't think.
Keep going.
So here's what happens. The data says that 40% of all decision makers that are new in their job, VPs or higher, will make $1 million worth of decisions or more in their first 90 days there. Now, here's the other piece of the data. The other piece of the data says that 80% of that 40% will make those decisions in the first 90 days.
Okay. And you said the data says 40% of all DMs will make it $1 million worth of decisions within how long?
Within a year.
Okay.
And then 80% of those will do that in the first 90 days in their job.
Wow.
So my argument is you got basically 45 days to get to somebody.
Holy cow.
It's that simple.
And you prospect all the people that are literally like right in that motion. So you're going after the VPs of sales job change within the first 90 days.
Yeah.
And you probably go like most recent to.
Yep.
Okay. Wow. And then, so that was the what and the why, right? Like secret, only sell to people who are motivated to change. You call these people mobilizers, right? And what, when you say mobilizers, because they're like motivated, they'll make shit move or what?
They make things happen.
Make things happen. Okay. And then for the audience, how do they execute this secret? Like your best tips for how to execute only, sell to people who are motivated for change.
Create a safe search on LinkedIn. It tells you every week when people now have that title. I have 27,000 people in my network. Every single week, hundreds of them change jobs and become a VP of sales. So that's one thing. If you don't like job changes through LinkedIn, you can use safe searches. You can use bounced emails. But then you pick up the phone and you have to have what I call a 7-second sale. You can't say, hey, Brandon, my name's Craig. I think you need some sales training. Because that uses nouns to describe the product. Oh, I already get that from somebody else. You need verbs that describe the value. I have a really simple way for more of your B players to be A players. How? That process is called a 7-second sale.
The 7-second sale, verbs to describe the problem?
The value.
The value.
The value of being your customer, not nouns that describe the product or service that you sell.
Yeah, because you said I've got a solution to help more B players become A players, right?
And I'll go, how? How do you do that? Wow, I want to know.
Interesting. And then in your email, like let's just say they don't pick up the phone. Would you just keep it short and sweet? Like, hi Brandon, Craig here. I've got a solution to turn your B players into A players.
Here's the secret. The secret is you can't email them the same day because you come across as too aggressive. So I wait until Wednesday at lunch and I send an email and say, in case email's better.
Do you include, I love that. Do you, so you follow up 2 days later?
Yeah. And then 2 days later again in person over the phone.
Follow up every 2 days and switch the channel. And then are you doing any more personalization? Like, okay, so let's just say it's VP of sales at a sales tech company.
Nope.
Like you're not doing all this crazy research. You're just saying, Craig here, I've got a solution to help more B players turn into A players at Seamless.AI.
I don't even mention the company name.
Shit. Like a sentence. It's a 7-second sale.
I can personalize it this much and get a greater response than almost everybody else.
And if you're emailing me, tell me what that email would say.
Basically it says, hey, Brandon. So the subject line is in case email's better. Right? Hey, Brandon, Craig here. Like I said on my voicemail, I have a simple way to turn more of your B players into A players. Let me know if it's of interest to you. Yes or no, and I'll follow up if need be. But the whole idea is let me know yes or no.
Oh, so good, man.
If they can't read it and respond in less than 10 seconds, it's never going to get read. Here's the other thing that drives me crazy. Okay. Every time you do this, you need to make sure your phone number's in your signature in your email. I'm amazed how many, kids I'll call them because they're half my age, can't be bothered to put a phone number and an email address. And as soon as you do that, I'm like, okay, do you work for a real company? Are you doing this part-time? Are you in your mom's basement? Like, how come you don't have a freaking phone number?
Yeah. That's amazing, man.
That's
wow. So here we go. The secret, only sell to people who are motivated to change. We call these the mobilizers. The data says 40% of all DMs will make $1 million of decision within a year. 80% of those will do it in 90 days. The best way to execute for the audience, you got to create a safe search on LinkedIn. You're going to see hundreds of them. And it's a 7-second sell. You have to use verbs to describe the value of your solution for your customer. Don't email same day. Simple way to turn more B players into A players, and then A or B, yes or no. Make it stupid easy for these VPs. They get 1,000.
Because they're busy.
They're so busy. And then make sure your phone's number is in the signature. My man, that was incredible. What is the top template that you don't want to share?
I'm not saying.
Oh, come on, man. It's sales secrets from the top 1%, man.
I'll give you some other examples, okay? If I sell something that helps so I'm just going to give you an example. If I sell really expensive tires, okay, I'm going to phone the person who's the VP of sales and say, hey, Brandon, my name's Craig. I have a really simple way to make you the preferred vendor in your industry. They're going to say, how? And then I'll say, well, so if I told you that my assumption was the person with the highest on-time delivery statistic was the preferred vendor, would you agree? Yes. And if you're the preferred vendor, you get phoned first when things are important or urgent and price is not the issue? Yes. Well, I help you have a higher on-time delivery statistic. How do you do that? I'm going to sell you really expensive tires. Lots of examples. See how that works?
That's incredible, man. Right, a verb descriptor that gets the prospect to ask why or how.
I will, though, tell you one other thing that I think is a bit of a secret. So the secret is to use words that take away a pain. So you're selling a painkiller, not a vitamin. And the words you should use if you can: reduce, minimize, or eliminate.
Reduce, minimize, or eliminate.
I can eliminate inventory write-downs. I can reduce the number of B reps, or reps that are A rep or B reps. I can reduce or minimize the vendor incompatibility in your infrastructure. Right? Reduce, minimize, or eliminate are the words that tend to get people back.
You like pain versus like, okay, so instead of pitching, I'll help your sales rep, more B player sales reps become A players. You would rather say that than like, I'll help your sales team increase revenue by 300%.
Yeah.
Why?
So I want to be careful because my heart stops not just the clock, my heart stops also my battery on my laptop.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no problem. Just tie it in real quick. Like, why do you sell the pain versus the vitamin?
Because the data tells me that people are 10 times more likely to act in order to avoid a negative than move towards a positive.
So if I'm selling Seamless, I'm going to help you make a shitload of money, and I'm going to help you eliminate a ton of wasted time every day on list building, prospecting, and appointment setting. My VP of revenue loves to sell the pain and the time wasted. I love to sell the revenue that you're going to make. Your recommendation based on the data says I should sell the time reduced, the time wasted that they get back.
Or if I went to a VP of marketing and say, I can maximize your email delivery rate.
But that would be.
I agree. Or the other way around is I can minimize the number of emails you get that go into spam.
Or that bounce. I can minimize the amount of emails that bounce.
But it's not but you got to sell the impact, because what happens with a bounce is it impacts someone's delivery rate. Because if it bounces, people assume your list is bad and they put you on a spam list, and less of your email goes into the actual inbox. So I can minimize the amount of email that goes in your recipient spam filter.
Awesome. And I know your laptop's about to die. So Craig Elias, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can the audience learn from you, connect with you, follow you for more?
Best place is LinkedIn. Hook up on LinkedIn. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll send you'll see my standard response if you send me a connection request, and it includes a free link to download my book.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Oh, new book.
Same book. The second book. The first book was called Shift. How do you take advantage of these events when they happen? The second book I'm working on is called Shove. How do you create the events and push aside your competition?
I love it, dude.
I
can't wait to get a copy.
Third book is Stay. How do you prevent the events and keep your customers?
Amazing, man. Well, I know audience, thank you, Craig, for all of your time and your sales secrets today. Truly appreciate it. And thank you, audience, for joining us for Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Order a copy at secretsalesbook.com, secretsalesbook.com. That's secretsalesbook.com. And go follow Craig Elias right now. Send him a message and learn more from him today. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%. We release new episodes every Monday and Thursday, so make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube to never miss an episode.